Welcome to r/payback. It all fell apart so suddenly. One moment, OP was nestled in the comfort of her usual routine, and the next, her marriage was unraveling. At 28, she hadn't expected to face something so shattering. Her husband, once her closest companion, had become distant, and their shared life began to feel more like a distant memory. But it wasn't just the drifting apart. There was something more. It was a single, innocent moment that had caused the fracture. A kiss on the forehead. It had been a simple gesture of affection between OP and her younger brother, something they'd shared since childhood, a bond built on years of mutual support. But to her husband, that kiss had ignited something much darker, an unspoken misunderstanding that threatened to tear apart everything. What was meant to be familial comfort had now become a battleground for trust, jealousy, and suspicion. OP couldn't shake the feeling that things weren't as they seemed, and her husband's anger seemed so out of place. How had something so small led them to this point? OP had always been close to her brother, Jake. At 28, she was the older sibling, but their bond was one of equals, two people who had always depended on each other. Growing up, their home was filled with turbulence and occasional chaos. Their parents' volatile relationship meant they'd often sought solace in each other's company. OP had learned to be Jake's protector, while he was her comfort when the world felt too heavy. Through the years, their emotional connection only deepened. They were there for each other through every challenge, breakups, school struggles, the death of a beloved pet. They hugged, laughed, and cried together like nothing else mattered. The affection they shared was simple but profound. Even as adults, they often greeted each other with warm, sincere embraces and the occasional forehead kiss. Nothing romantic, just familial love and affection. Her husband, Nathan, hadn't always understood their closeness, but at first, he tolerated it. He'd seen their bond as nothing more than the typical sibling relationship. Or so OP had thought. What started as gentle teasing about how touchy-feely they were had gradually become something more pointed. Nathan's dismissiveness was subtle at first, a rolling of the eyes or a sarcastic remark here and there, but over time, his discomfort became harder to ignore. It started innocuously. Nathan would joke about how OP and Jake seemed to have a special connection, always laughing it off like it was no big deal. He'd tease OP about how she was always so touchy with her brother, always hugging him or offering comforting kisses on the forehead. OP laughed along, assuming it was just a silly, jealousy-fueled quirk. After all, their family had always been like this. What was the harm? But Nathan's attitude began to change. During a dinner party with friends, Jake had absent-mindedly kissed OP on the forehead as a friendly gesture, and Nathan's face had darkened, his smile faltering for just a moment. When OP asked him about it later, he brushed it off with a quick, "It's nothing." But she noticed the coldness in his tone. Soon, Nathan began to make more frequent comments, almost always veiled as jokes. "You're really close to your brother, huh? You don't think that's weird?" he'd say with a tight grin, like he was trying to gauge her reaction. OP would shake her head, trying to dismiss his concerns. "It's just Jake, babe. We've been through a lot together." But his subtle remarks continued. At family gatherings, Nathan would distance himself from the group when Jake was around. He would sigh, roll his eyes, or mutter under his breath. "Not the forehead kisses again," he'd say. Or, "Can you stop acting like you're in a soap opera?" OP found herself constantly trying to soothe his bruised ego, assuring him it was nothing, just family dynamics. As time passed, though, Nathan's discomfort grew into something more insidious. The jokes became fewer, but the tension became palpable. OP could feel it, the weight of his unspoken thoughts. It was like he was quietly analyzing every interaction between her and Jake, scrutinizing it for any hint of something more than sibling affection. But OP couldn't understand why. What had shifted? Why was Nathan's jealousy becoming so intense? He hadn't seemed bothered at first, but now every small display of affection between her and Jake felt like it was under a microscope. The more she tried to brush it off, the more she realized that something had fundamentally changed. Nathan's jealousy wasn't just about her relationship with Jake. It was about something deeper, something she was yet to fully understand. It was supposed to be just another normal weekend. Jake, OP's younger brother, had come to stay with them for a couple of days. Nothing unusual. They all spent the day watching movies, sharing meals, and catching up on life. The atmosphere was relaxed, filled with light-hearted conversations. Nathan seemed to tolerate Jake's presence more than he'd let on, though there was an occasional look of discomfort whenever OP and Jake shared one of their casual moments of affection, like a hug or a brief touch. Later that night, though, things took a different turn. After Nathan had gone to bed, Jake and OP stayed up, talking about the struggles in his life. There were things he had never shared with anyone else, fears about his future, and frustration with the uncertainty he felt. As the conversation deepened, Jake's voice cracked with emotion, and OP felt her heart ache for him. "I just don't know what to do anymore," Jake confessed, his eyes filled with raw vulnerability. OP pulled him into a gentle hug, holding him close. She had always been there for him, the one person he could rely on when the world felt like too much. She softly whispered words of comfort, brushing a tear from his cheek. In that moment, she leaned in and placed a soft kiss on his forehead, one of those simple, familial gestures that had always been a symbol of their bond. Just as she pulled away, she noticed Nathan standing in the doorway. His face was a mask of emotion, too hard to read. Without a word, he turned and left the room, the door clicking shut behind him. OP's heart skipped a beat. She felt the weight of his unspoken judgment, but she didn't know why he had reacted this way. The next morning, the air was thick with tension. Nathan was unusually distant, his eyes cold as he avoided OP's attempts to make small talk. She tried to brush it off, assuming he was still tired or had a lot on his mind. But as the morning dragged on, she couldn't ignore the distance between them. When breakfast was over and the awkward silence finally became unbearable, Nathan snapped. "This has gone on long enough," he said, his voice sharp. OP felt a chill run down her spine as he looked at her with a mixture of anger and confusion. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her heart pounding. "You and Jake, you're too close," Nathan accused, his voice trembling with emotion. "I can't even look at you two without feeling sick. It's like you're crossing boundaries, like it's emotional cheating. Hell, it's borderline incest." OP froze, unable to process what he was saying. "What?" "Nathan, no, it's just my brother. We've been through everything together. This is nothing like that." But Nathan wasn't listening. His words came fast, harsh, as if he had been bottling them up for too long. "Don't defend it. I saw you last night. That kiss? That's not normal. I can't stand by and watch you throw away everything for this twisted relationship you have with him." OP's mind spun as she tried to make sense of his accusations. "Nathan, you're not thinking clearly." "You never get it, do you?" he interrupted, his face flushed with anger. "I'm done." And with that, he stormed out of the room, leaving OP stunned and broken. She couldn't understand how something so innocent had spiraled into this. For days, OP tried everything she could think of to reach Nathan. She sent long, heartfelt texts, trying to explain herself, to remind him of the love they had shared. She called him repeatedly, leaving messages pleading for him to just listen, to give her a chance to explain. But Nathan was resolute. He refused to take her calls, his responses terse and final. "I'm done, OP. I can't do this anymore. You've crossed a line, and I can't look past it." The silence from him was suffocating. And then, to make things worse, Nathan started telling people about their supposed weird relationship. He painted OP as someone who had crossed into dangerous territory with her brother, and suddenly, friends she had known for years began pulling away. Some of them started treating her with cold distance, others with uncomfortable sympathy. Even those who tried to offer support seemed unsure, like they didn't want to get involved in something so complicated. She had never felt more isolated. How had everything gone so wrong so quickly? Desperate for help, OP turned to her mother-in-law, hoping that maybe, just maybe, someone in Nathan's family would understand. She arranged to meet with her in the hopes of finding some common ground, some support. But when OP tried to explain the situation, she was met with a response that crushed her heart. "Maybe you should think about cutting back on contact with Jake," her mother-in-law suggested, her tone heavy with concern. "Nathan's not the only one who's noticed how close you are." OP felt like the ground had been ripped out from under her. Her mother-in-law, the one person she thought would stand by her, was now questioning everything. "Are you serious?" OP's voice shook. "This is how it's being seen? I thought you'd understand." "I'm just trying to help," her mother-in-law replied softly. "You need to consider what's best for your marriage." But OP felt nothing but betrayal. Her own family, her brother, and now even Nathan's family were turning their backs on her. She felt misjudged, misunderstood, and heartbreakingly alone. Would anyone ever see the truth? Or was her entire life now defined by a single kiss on the forehead? When OP finally told Jake what had happened, he was devastated. His face paled as he listened to her recount the events, the accusations, the fights, and Nathan's decision to leave. "I ruined everything, didn't I?" Jake's voice cracked as he spoke, his guilt overwhelming. "I should have never let it go that far. I should have known this would happen." OP reached out, holding him tightly. "No, Jake, no. This isn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. It's not on you." She repeated it over and over, though her own heart was breaking. She had never wanted to hurt him, but their relationship, once so private and safe, was now under a painful spotlight. The innocence they had shared was being scrutinized by the people who mattered most, by her husband, and now even her family. It felt as though their bond, something that had always been a source of strength, was now twisted into something ugly, something unrecognizable. Jake and OP sat in silence for a while, neither knowing what to say next. They had always been there for each other, but now it seemed that even their love had been tainted by a single misunderstood moment. The papers came one morning. Nathan had filed for divorce, citing boundary issues as the reason. OP read the words over and over, the weight of them sinking in with every passing moment. Boundary issues. Was that really what this was about? She had tried everything to make Nathan understand, to assure him that their love for each other was harmless. But now, everything she had known was unraveling. She felt humiliated, emotionally drained. The man she had once thought of as her partner, her equal, had turned his back on her. And for what? A simple act of familial affection? She couldn't believe it. Still, in the face of it all, OP couldn't shake the feeling that she hadn't done anything wrong. She hadn't crossed a line. The love between her and Jake wasn't romantic. It was pure, rooted in years of shared experience. But Nathan's refusal to see it that way had made her question everything. Therapy became her refuge. She began seeing a counselor to try and sort through her emotions, to make sense of what had happened. It wasn't easy. Every session felt like peeling back another layer of the life she had lost. She realized how much of her love had been misunderstood, how her intentions had been clouded by societal judgments that she hadn't even considered. Her bond with Jake was not the problem. It was the way others had viewed it, and how she had been unable to defend it. In her search for clarity, OP turned to Reddit, seeking an outside perspective on what had happened. She posted her story, not knowing if anyone would understand. "Did I cross a line?" she typed, pouring her confusion and pain into the post. She genuinely wanted to know, was it wrong for her to show her brother affection in the way she always had? She loved him, but she could never have imagined how that love would be perceived by others. The question nagged at her. AITA for kissing my brother and ruining my marriage? OP felt torn between the love she had for her brother and the weight of social norms she had never fully questioned. She wasn't sure if she had done something wrong, or if the real issue was simply a misunderstanding too big to repair. That wraps up today's episode of r/payback. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to subscribe for more epic stories.